Hi, guys. Okay, just reduce this. Hi, guys. Hi, Sarah. I see you. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. I think we should get started. Or should we wait for more people?
I think we'll get started very soon. Kobe, can you please check your phone?
Okay, give me a second. Okay, I haven't already done that. Okay, Milo, I think you're already co-host.
Okay, yes. I can see that we have some people in the room already.
I think we can start. Everybody else will probably be streaming live from Facebook. Yeah.
Sure thing. Let's go ahead and start.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. This is so exciting. It's our first webinar on the Lady Mush platform. My name is Kobe. I think all of you on Zoom actually know me, but I believe some people on Facebook might not know me. My name is Kobe Mishinge. Yes, and we started this platform as it was a small idea that we started probably a week or two ago. We just wanted to engage with other like-minded young people. We wanted to find out what exactly people are doing, what skills are needed, what gaps are there. And as we began having a conversation, this was myself and Milimo, we started talking more about personal branding. You know, how do you brand yourself? How do people perceive you? How do you portray yourself? You know, whether you're a job seeker, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a youth leader, you know, personal branding is a key element. So I don't want to preempt on so much. I think Milimo will cover a lot of that, but I'm definitely excited about this. I'm so happy to have everyone on board right now. Just a little housekeeping. If you want to participate, if you want to give any comments, or you've got any submissions, or you've got questions, you're free to do so. If you're using a laptop, you can actually check the bottom of your screen. There should be a chat box just under there. If you're using a phone, obviously, you need to look for the chat box on the left-hand side of your screen. At least for my phone, it's on the left-hand side. So you need to check for that as well. We want this webinar to be as engaging as possible. We want you to ask questions. We want you to tell us about your experiences in regards to personal branding. This is a network that we want to build and strengthen over time. You know, we are young professionals, so in a way we need to stick together and develop and elevate each other. So I'm so grateful for Milimo for accepting to do the personal branding segment. Milimo is a strong marketing professional. We work together under ACCA, the Association of Business of what's ACCA again? Association of Chartered and Certified Accountants. Yes. So we have known each other for a very long time. So Milimo is a strong professional. And yeah, we are excited to start this. I can see a lot of people are joining in now, so I need to accept those invitations. But please feel free and let's get this ball rolling. Thank you so much. Milimo, over to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our session. Just so I'm clear, can everybody see me clearly? Hello?
Yeah, we can see you.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry, my sound went out there a bit. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. So hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's webinar. My name is Milimo Maila. I am a strategic marketing and communications executive. And today's session is really just about sharing some insight with you regarding personal branding. I think it's very important as individuals for us to understand the power that we hold in our unique qualities and be able to leverage on those qualities. So without further delay, I'll be moving into the presentation now. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so the basics of personal branding. Personal branding is important to us because it helps us distinguish ourselves as individuals from one another. I think it's going to help us market ourselves in whichever industries or context that we wish to promote ourselves and become marketable to an audience. Okay. Sorry, my sound is cutting off a bit. Just let me know if you can't hear me, just drop me a message.
We can hear you, Milimo. Just carry on. We can hear you.
Okay, great. So I wanted to start the presentation off with a little bit of a game called Who Am I? And on the slide that you're seeing right now, there's some personal brand characteristics that belong to certain individuals. And I would like you to try to guess who these individuals are by the end of the session. So at the end of the session, we're going to come back to this, and the first correct answer is definitely going to receive something. And yeah, let's participate and let's make it engaging. I don't want this to be a session where people walk away with questions in their head. I think as we go along, if you're a note taker like myself, I think that you should definitely take down some notes, think of questions that you would like to ask us specific to your situation, your own personal brand, or even just questions about personal branding in general. So I'm going to leave this slide up for about a minute or two just to give you some time to look at what's there and figure out who these people are, and then we will continue with the presentation. So just to run through, the first individual is a woman who is influential, a musician and an actress, somebody who has worked with and performed for world leaders, is a perfectionist with her work, always delivers outstanding performances, tells stories on contemporary issues such as police brutality through her music, is a firm believer in female empowerment, and is a game changer. The second individual is a sportsman known for being one of the highest paid footballers of all time, is confident, has great work ethic, is an entrepreneur of $1 million company, and is a philanthropist. Has played for some of the biggest clubs in the world and has 5 Ballon d'Or titles and great physique. Okay, I think that's about enough time. So at the end of the session, we will come back to this, and whoever guesses who these two individuals are right on the first try and is the first to comment will receive something. Okay, so now we dive into our main presentation, and we'll start by looking at branding. What is branding in general, and why is it important? So I'm sure some of you ask yourselves the questions, why are things branded? Why is it that things need to have a unique identity to distinguish themselves from one another? Branding is the marketing practice of giving a product or service, whether tangible or intangible, a unique identity to help distinguish itself from its competitors. It is important because it's what helps us stand out in the crowd. So when you think about brands, every day we're surrounded by brands. You see brands around your house, you see brands on people's clothing, you see brands in stores, you see brands everywhere you go, on TV, with the things that we come across on a day-to-day life. And I just wanted to say as well and give some examples of some brands. Some of the brands that we see in everyday life are things around our household. Like right now, I'm looking around and I can see Kellogg's, and we're able to familiarize ourselves with these things because they have a distinguished quality about themselves that helps them stand out from the audiences. Okay, so I'll now move on to personal branding and why it matters. So a personal brand is an identity that is tied to an individual. And this identity is made up of unique characteristics, qualities, or competencies that help this individual distinguish themselves to, I don't know, to an audience or amongst competitors as well. So just by a show of hands, how many of you have personal brands at the moment? You can comment in your chat box just by raising your hand, or by a show of hands, just to let us know how many of you actually have personal brands at the moment. Has anyone responded? Sorry, I can't see anything popping up here. Okay.
Yes, we actually have some people that are responding.
Okay, so we have,
yeah.
I can see Muvanga Chileshe, I can see Chilofia.
Yes. So we have some people that have responded. So some people have personal brands. Some people are not sure from the feedback that we're getting. This is also from Facebook as well.
Okay. Okay, so sorry, I'll just have to take us back a bit there. Okay, so with personal brands, I can see that only a few people have said yes to having a personal brand, but I think what we don't realize is that everybody at some point actually has a personal brand. And your personal brand is made up of the qualities or characteristics that people associate to you. Those are distinctive qualities or characteristics that stand out to everybody else. And a lot of the times we don't realize this because we're not intentional about creating our personal brands. We're not intentional about how we want to be perceived by an audience or what it is that is marketable about us. And in the next couple of slides, I want to share how you can discover your own personal brand, how you can develop your own personal brand, maintaining your own personal brand, and being able to communicate your personal brand to your audience. Okay, so with discovering your personal brand, when you think of discovering your personal brand, I want you to think about characteristics that you possess at the moment. Is there anything that stands out significantly? What is your unique proposition? What is it that is unique about you and the qualities that you possess? What is it about those qualities that makes you stand out from everybody else? I would also suggest having conversations with people. I think it's very important for you to engage with people who know you and people who understand you to help you leverage on those qualities or characteristics. Sorry, I just see that there's okay, on those qualities and characteristics that will help you build a strong brand. I think when you're trying to decide what type of personal brand you wish to set up for yourself, it's important to think of your natural qualities, and your natural qualities are qualities that you're naturally attuned to. So for instance, if I'm somebody who's quite sociable, one of my natural qualities would be my ability to communicate with others easily and express myself. Whereas somebody who's a little bit introverted and more kept to themselves may find it quite difficult to express themselves in the same way. And for them, that would then have to be a developmental quality. So your developmental qualities. Okay, Kobe, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. So your developmental qualities are your qualities that you would need to take time to nurture and to cultivate. Sorry, someone has joined us on video. Hi, Fernando. Okay, so these are qualities that you would need to take time to cultivate and develop further in order to be able to build a strong personal brand. And people make this mistake all the time where they think building a brand is something, a personal brand especially, is something that happens overnight, but it's actually not. It's something that requires commitment and it requires consistency. And when you're thinking of developing your personal brand, you really need to understand who you are, and you need to be authentic to yourself and be true to where you stand with your own qualities and how best you can leverage them to meet the demands of your market or targeted audience in whichever context you wish to operate in. One of the steps that you need to take when building your personal brand is identifying your audience. Guys, I can't stress this enough. Please understand who you're trying to market yourself to, because if you're marketing yourself to the wrong audience, you're completely missing the spot and you're definitely not going to be successful. I think in order to build a personal brand, you really need to understand who it is that you're trying to market yourself to. What is it that they're looking for? What type of characteristics or qualities would stand out to them? If you are, for instance, a job seeker, your audience would then be employers, and you would need to understand what is it that employers are looking for? What is it that they want? How best can I market myself to these employers to make myself stand out from other people who are looking for jobs? And if you are an entrepreneur, understanding your audience, understanding that your audience would then be investors or potential partners who you would like to bring on board, and what type of qualities are they looking for, and how best would you be able to leverage on your own qualities to be marketable to them. If I'm moving too fast, please feel free to just drop me a note to slow down, or if there's anything that I'm going to speak about that you would like me to come back to later on in the session, please feel free to let me know. Okay, so the next step we will look at is developing your personal brand. So remember, a few minutes ago, I spoke about those developmental qualities, and I spoke about the need to commit to developing yourself as an individual. So for those qualities that don't necessarily come naturally to you, you're going to have to spend time committing to nurturing them and cultivating them and refining them. And you will find that over time, refinery is sort of like a consistent process when it comes to your personal brand, because in an industry, you have what is known as trends. So trends are similar patterns that occur over a period of time. And this is normally obtained when you're doing your market research, where you're able to identify what is it that is in demand in your industry at that point in time. What is it that you can leverage on using your own personality or your own characteristics or qualities that would be able to put you in the front line or put you as a first priority or a first choice to somebody who you're trying to appeal to? Okay, the next step is communicating your personal brand to your audience. Another common mistake that people make is not communicating their personal brand effectively to their audience. The audience not being able to understand what it is that distinguishes this individual from other people within a certain context or within varied contexts. And when I say varied context, what I mean is, because personal brands are so specific, other people are operating as employers, other people are entrepreneurs, other people are job seekers. So you need to understand, first of all, the context in which you want your personal brand to stand, and also who that personal brand is being marketed to, and also what communication platforms or channels can you use to effectively communicate these characteristics of your brand that help you create your unique proposition as an individual, and that being something that distinguishes you from everybody else. Okay, so I think I will take a bit of a break here. We'll pause for a second just so that we can answer a few questions if there's anybody who has questions so far. The presentation isn't really that long, so like I said earlier, I encourage participation, I encourage you to engage, I encourage you to ask questions and to be curious about your own personal brands, and to really think of how much of an impact your personal brand has on your level of success, or what it is that you're trying to achieve, and why it is so important to create a personal brand that is strong and fitting for what it is you're trying to do. Okay, so
we actually, yes, I think at this point we will take a few questions. I do see Femida's hand up. Femida, you're more than welcome to ask or a question or make any contributions.
Yeah, thank you. So my question was more around, I suppose, rebranding. I saw that someone actually posted a question on Zoom as well, similar to what my thought process was. So what advice or what ideas do you have around people that initially started with a brand, but perhaps need to take a fresher perspective on maybe rejuvenating their brand and seeing what else they can do to amplify that?
Okay. Thank you for your question, Femida, and Chilofia also had a similar one I've just seen in the chat. So when it comes to rebranding, like I said earlier, you really need to understand what you want your brand to be about. You really need to understand what direction you would like to take your brand into. Is there any specific direction that you're looking to take your brand, so that maybe we can use that as a case study for everybody else, just so that they have an understanding of the process that is involved in developing a new brand or diversifying a brand or going into a different channel from a brand that you already possess?
For me, it's more about creating a brand in a really competitive market. I think it's nowadays, a lot of markets are saturated. You could have an idea, and someone else will have a similar idea and run with it. So I suppose for me, it's how do you stay fresh and continuously rebrand, I guess, because there's so many changes and so many people doing the same things nowadays. So how do you actually make yourself stand out?
Okay, great. So I'll take you back to the drawing board, which would be the first couple of slides that I shared, where I was talking about discovering your personal brand and understanding the direction that you would like to take that brand into. If you're looking to, so for instance, are you able to share which type of targeted audience exactly you're looking to market yourself to?
Yeah, so talking about the food industry, particularly food blogging at the moment is big, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think everybody's doing recipes, everybody's doing healthy eating. How do you break into that and I suppose make yourself different from everything else?
Okay, so what I would advise is when you're thinking about creating your personal brand, do a bit of market research, understand who your audience are and what it is that they're looking for. And remember what I mentioned about the trends earlier. You need to look at patterns within your industry to see what is it that works, what is it that doesn't work. And if there is a gap in that market, what is it that you can offer differently that would appeal to your audience? And sometimes I think people tend to forget that you can also create your own market. That's the beauty with things. You can create a niche market that eventually could disrupt an industry and become something big. I mean, when we look at Apple, for instance, we used to use Walkmans and Discmans, and Sony actually used to be really big in the game at the time because they were quite popular in that regard. And when Apple came into the industry with the iPod, initially it started off with a very niche market, but there was a need for it. They noticed an opportunity to create a device that can hold songs so that people don't need to be changing tapes and CDs. So I think if you're able to identify the gaps within your own market, and if you're able to understand what characteristics you possess as an individual, and how best you can leverage on those to get competitive advantage, I think that's what matters best. And then also with communicating your personal brand to your audience. What platforms are you using? How best can you interact and engage with them? What is it that you can offer differently? Is there a cuisine that's not that popular that you can try to introduce? Is there something that's particular to you that you're really good at, that you only want to focus on one particular product or one particular thing? But then I think the most important thing is to continue to refine yourself. And when you look at these key steps that I've mentioned, you'll be able to then create something that would be able to help you uniquely stand out. Do you have any idea already of any unique characteristics that you may already possess? Or are you still in the stage where you're trying to discover what it is that you can do differently? I know you mentioned wanting to do something different, but have you had any ideas so far of something that you would be able to implement that could be helpful to you?
Yeah, I think that advice is spot on. I think it's really useful to know how to structure and go into something. And I think marketing is imperative to any industry that you go into, irrespective of what you do. So I won't bore everyone with my idea, but I think it's definitely given me some insight to how I can sort of approach that aspect of what I'm looking to do. So thank you.
Certainly, you're most welcome.
Just to make a brief contribution to what Famida has been saying, she mentioned food blogging, and she mentioned that it's a rising trend. A lot of people are getting more into cooking and making dishes and documenting it and presenting it, recipes, different types of techniques, and so on and so forth. So I do agree that that's a trend, especially if you're on Instagram, which is more picture and image orientated, and short video orientated. It's become a big thing. But just a little experience I have from my side. I do a bit of cooking as well, and I've been lucky enough to even like share some recipes on a radio station. And the first time that I went to the radio station, they asked me to make sure I came with one recipe. And when I took a second to think about the sort of people that plug into a radio station, you have people both in rural areas, people in urban areas, you have people all across multiple provinces. Maybe some people are even tuning in internationally. And for me, being in Zambia and looking at the current context, I said, I'm not going to put a fancy dish as my selected choice of a recipe that I bring. I'm going to put a dish that everyone can have access to. So I chose to make it predominantly a vegetarian dish. And I think it was just a basic vegetable stir fry. Probably add like eggplant, tomato, onion, capsicum, and just a few different spices. And then that was something that was eaten on a wrap. And in such a meat-loving country, I was really skeptical about how people would receive this dish. But it turns out that, and one of the reasons why I did this dish is because I know that sometimes meat isn't something that's always readily available or easily affordable in Zambia for everyone across the demographic. But the feedback I got from being a bit brave and experimenting with vegetarian dishes, a lot more people called in saying, oh, wow, I grow some capsicum in my garden. Oh, wow, I grow some eggplant in my garden, tomato, onion. These are things that are easily available for me. You know, there's also a surge in people trying to be more health conscious in what they eat. So sometimes for me, I think that you really need to not be afraid with going a different direction, even though you're within a certain target niche or market, because sometimes that opens up avenues for you to truly define yourself or set yourself apart from the rest of the market, you know, by trying things that no one seems to be trying, or by being a bit brave to experiment.
That sounds great. Sorry, I didn't get your name. I can't see who was speaking at the moment. Sorry, can you just introduce yourself? Was that Chilufya?
Oh, yeah, that's me.
Hi, Chilu. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people stay away from building personal brands that are effective and with the characteristics that they can actually leverage on, because there's fear of rejection. There's fear of people not taking their brands well, or fear of putting themselves out there. But like you mentioned, you went on a radio station and you managed to find a niche within a mass audience, and you were trying to cater for those people. And it turns out there are other people within the market who would appreciate a product like what you are offering. So there's definitely need to use the right platforms and to communicate your personal brand to your audience effectively, and to try different things, and to continue to develop yourself, like I mentioned, and to understand who your audience are. So now that you've got an audience with the vegetarian dishes, that should sort of be an eye opener for you in terms of the level of growth and opportunities that you can create for yourself within an industry. Are they ready-made meals that are being made? Are people able to go to a store and buy ready-made meals where the vegetables are already prepped and ready to just be cooked? Some people don't know how to mix things up. So an idea or an opportunity in that aspect would be to sell such types of meals to supermarkets and to have people be able to purchase those things easily, combined as a mixture, like the ingredients already pre-prepared, so that when they go home and they want to start cooking their meals or following your recipes, it's much easier for them to do that. And of course, people appreciate convenience. I mean, we're living in a time where sometimes things are difficult. And like you mentioned, not everybody is able to afford meat. And also just the current situation in Zambia, where sometimes people don't have electricity, it makes things much easier, and it just becomes more convenient. So what I would encourage is for you guys to continue to explore around those areas and to continue to put yourselves out there. However, I will emphasize that when you are putting yourselves out there, make sure you have a comprehensive communication strategic plan to help you execute your personal brand plan properly, so that people are able to understand what qualities distinguish you from everybody else and how best you'd be able to leverage that and market yourself to your audience. So I hope that was helpful, Chilu, but I think we can go back into the presentation now if everybody is okay with that.
Yeah,
Before
thank
we
you.
do,
Thanks,
before we
guys.
do Milo, I do have a question from somebody has just sent me a message.
Okay.
She says her name is Anna.
Mm-hmm.
In your conversation or presentation, there's been a strong focus on the entrepreneurship aspect, but how can I brand myself as a job seeker? So I think we need to touch on somebody who's looking for a job. How can they brand their skills? How can they differentiate themselves from everybody else? You know, especially when you're looking for a job, the pool is so big. You know, for one job, you're probably like 3,000 of you. So how do you make sure that the employers choose you against the 3,000 that apply for that position?
Okay, so I was going to come to this actually later on in the presentation under common mistakes, and we will touch on this again. But one thing that I think a mistake that a lot of job seekers make is on their CVs. Your CVs are a platform for you to be able, or a channel for you to be able to market yourself to employers. And on your CV, when you're writing down your skills and your capabilities and your competencies, please make sure you don't use umbrella terms. That is something that stops people from being distinctive, you know, because when employers are taking in applications, they receive masses of applications. And sometimes coming down to the right candidate can be very difficult, especially when all the CVs are looking the same. So what I would advise, Anna, is rather than mentioning umbrella terms like I am excellent at sales, what is it about sales that makes you good at it? Is it because you have a 95% success rate? Is it because you're able to understand different markets and you're able to understand the business as a whole, which makes it easier for you to sell? You really need to be specific about the skills that you hold, and don't be scared to show off a little bit. I mean, if you've achieved something great, honestly, if you've got some achievements under your belt, if you've held leadership positions before, if you've worked on a project that has been successful, please share that on your CVs to avoid all the CVs just looking sort of the same and carrying this monotonous energy of job seekers who are not specific about what qualities they possess or characteristics they possess in order for them to be more distinguished to employers. So Anna, after this session finishes, please drop me an email and we can have a further chat about that, because I'm actually quite interested in assisting quite a lot of, are you a graduate? Like, or are you just in between jobs?
So
are you like
Anna sent through a private message, so I'd have to get back to her.
Oh, she sent it to a private message.
Yeah.
Anna, if you're on the session, please drop me an email. But for those of you who are starting out as graduates, I know you don't necessarily have experience at the moment and you're thinking, how best would I be able to market myself without any prior experience? You can talk about the projects that you worked on. At university, you've got your seminars, you've got a lot of opportunities to showcase yourself and to put yourself in the front line to develop your characteristics and qualities as an individual, which could help you gain an advantage in the job market. And if you are switching careers or changing industries, what I would advise is that you continue to focus on your strengths and you understand your audience, and from that you'll be able to succeed.
Hello, Kobe. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. May we know who's speaking?
This is Kim Ford.
Oh, hi, King Ford. Yes.
Hi, Kobe. Melimo, brilliant presentation there. Brilliant. I like it.
Thank you, King Ford.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to add to the conversation just a little bit, under 2 minutes. The fact that I think personal branding is something that is very important, cannot be overemphasized. And the thing I want to add there is on personal branding, I think the starting point is try to Google your name and see what comes up on social media. I think that's where the conversation of your personal brand starts from. So if, for example, you want to appear as a marketer on social media and other platforms, and that's your brand that you want to build, then when you Google your name, you find that what's appearing is a dancer. Then obviously something has gone wrong with your personal branding. So we have to brand ourselves in a sense that what is it that you want the public, immediately your name is mentioned, what comes to their mind? Yeah. So I think I just thought to add that point.
Thank you so much, King Ford, for that contribution. And I think you're absolutely right. I think, like I mentioned in the beginning, it's important to evaluate yourself as an individual before you think about deciding or determining what your personal brand is going to be and the direction that you would like to take your personal brand into. If, as Kingford mentioned, you are a dancer on social media who is looking to become a marketer, what I would advise is try to also just do some cleaning. You know, it's okay to take things down on your social media that you no longer feel comfortable with having up, or things that may give a mixed signal regarding your personal brand. So like I mentioned, there's always need for that refinery, and there's always need to continue to go back and forth with yourself when you're trying to decide what you want your personal brand to stand for. And I would rather people take their time in really understanding who they are and what it is that they would want their personal brand to represent in terms of perceptions from public opinions or from others. And when you figure out what it is that you want your personal brand to represent, work on developing that. If you have those characteristics that need fine tuning, don't be scared to commit to doing that. Try to do that and think about your audience. And you can actually do this simultaneously, where you try to establish who your audience are and how best you'd be able to place your brand within a market or within an industry. I really hope that that helps. Is everybody good so far?
I think we can proceed with the presentation, looking at the aspects of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
we don't want to steal too much of people's time.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'll just pick up from where we left off. The last slide that we were looking at was communicating your personal brand to your audience. And now I'm going to look at some of the common mistakes that people make with their personal brands. So one common mistake that people make with their personal brands is, like I said, the umbrella terms. Avoid using umbrella terms on your CV. If you are a job seeker, be specific about what it is that you're trying to market about yourself. Don't be broad. You need to be specific, and you need to leverage your best qualities. Another mistake that people make is not being consistent. And I'll give an example for this. So if you're a vlogger or a blogger is basically a video blogger. These are people who put videos up on social media, and they attract an audience and leverage on that. And if you are a blogger or a vlogger and you're posting for the first time, maybe you're a startup brand, you're just starting out, and you post something on social media and it only gets 2 likes, okay? Don't give up and don't stop posting, because you know what? When you're inconsistent with the way you position yourself to people, people start to think of you as unreliable, and unreliable brands are not trustworthy. And when people can't trust your brand or trust you, or when you're not able to trust your own brand and believe in your own brand, you end up failing not because you haven't made an effort, but because you're channeling your efforts the wrong way and you're not using the right channels to communicate this, or you're not leveraging the right opportunities that would be best suited to you. So try to avoid being inconsistent, try to avoid using umbrella terms, and a few more, just so that I don't forget, are weak communication strategies, not knowing which platforms you're supposed to be on, not knowing what platforms to use. That's why you really need to understand your audience. And then lastly, another one is not taking feedback. Guys, feedback is important. Please be open to feedback and constructive criticism. I'm sure I'm going to get some feedback after this, which I'll be open to. And feedback is not a bad thing. You know, it helps us refine ourselves. It helps us better ourselves. And it's a way of people telling you what they want as well, what they would like to see more of. So for Chilofia and Femida as well, who spoke about their food blogs earlier, try speaking to people who are a part of your audience. You can even sample just a few people, maybe about 10 people. Have a conversation with them. Speak to your friends, speak to your family, ask them what they think about your personal brand. Ask them what they think about what it is that you're trying to do and how best you'd be able to leverage that and gain advantage within a market or whatever varied context you decide to operate in. Okay, and now we've come to maintaining your personal brand. So maintaining your personal brand has a lot to do with consistency. You need to be consistent and you need to be dedicated to developing yourself as an individual. You need to be committed to doing market research. You need to be committed to understanding your audience. And you also just have to show up every time. And I think one of the things that I can say is that it's very important for you to trust your own brand, because like I said earlier, if you don't trust yourself, don't expect other people to trust you. If you don't trust your brand, don't expect other people to trust your brand. And in order to be a trustworthy brand, there definitely needs to be consistency, because that's what people take as reliability. And people love reliable brands because they know what they're going to receive at the end of the day. They know what to expect. They know that no matter what, that brand is still going to be present and to be reliable. They'll be able to get whatever it is that they need to get out of it. So those are just some points that I thought I should share regarding maintaining your personal brand. Okay, so what do we know? What do we now know? So we now know that personal brands are intentional. We now know that you need to understand your audience. We now know that you need to be dedicated to developing yourself and your brand, because that's the only way that your personal brand will be developed, is by you developing yourself. Because you could be sitting on some hidden talent that you don't know, and growth begins outside your comfort zone. So please, like Chilofia said, put yourselves out there, try different things, try to create new markets. If markets are already overflooded, there's nothing wrong with product development, market development. Look at the options that are available to you. And lastly, I would say invest in yourself as an individual and just be consistent with your brand. Okay. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I apologize for running over time. I know everybody is rushing for something to do, but I really appreciate you taking time to come and attend this session. I hope that you derived a lot of value from what I had to share and insights. And I hope it made you a bit more curious about your own personal brands and how best you can leverage the markets that you're trying to attract. And if you would like to have a conversation regarding your personal brands, or if you have any questions, my email address is on the slide at the beginning of the show. We will have a Q&A session. We're still coming back to that. But I thought that I should just mention, if you do have any other inquiries regarding marketing or communications, or if you would like to have a further discussion regarding what was discussed today, please feel free to get in touch. Okay, Kobe, over to you.
Yeah, wow, what an incredible presentation. To be honest, you've actually got me thinking about my own personal brand. And you know, as individuals, we have different sides to ourselves. You know, maybe there's a part of me that's a dancer, there's a part of me that's a singer, there's a part of, and you know, sometimes we actually confuse that. But what this presentation has done for me is it has made me think about exactly what I want people to perceive me as, you know, which is a marketing communications professional. So I've got a lot of homework, and I'm sure a lot of us on this chat do. We need to think about exactly what we're doing. But my personal question for you, Milimo, is I think there's something we haven't touched. How important is your offline brand?
Oh, that is
compared to your online brand, because I think a lot of us right now are thinking about just, you know, how I'm perceived on Facebook, on Instagram, on Pinterest, but there's a key aspect. There's your offline brand. What do we need to do to ensure that the two actually match and the two are speaking to each other?
Okay, guys, let me say this. Your online brand and your offline brand should be the same thing. If you're trying to market yourself to the same type of audience, you can maintain the same thing. I can't say that one is more important than the other, really, because when it comes to personal branding, it's really tailored. It's really individual. It's really specific. So you really need to identify what it is that works for you. Are you able to market? Is it better for you when you market yourself online? Is it better for you when you market yourself offline? Is it better for you when, and by offline, what we mean is, sorry, for those of you who don't understand what we mean by online and offline. What we mean by online is using your social media platforms, any marketing that takes place on the internet or via email or anything that has something to do with the digital age. And then when we come to your offline brands, this can be now in person, on your CVs, it can be at meetings, it can be during presentations, it can be using traditional media. Like if your brand is literally you as an individual, let's say maybe if you're a singer, you'd be placing yourself on billboards and you'd be placing yourself on TV, but you need to use the right channels, the right stations. If you're using billboards, you have to make sure that those billboards are placed in places where your market audience are found. So I can't say, so in conclusion, I can't say that one is more important than the other, but what I will say is when you're creating your communication strategy, it's important for you to take into consideration what channels to use and which ones are best suited to your brand and which ones would appeal more to your market demographic. How well do you engage with them? What platforms can you use to engage with them? So Kobe, I hope that answers your question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Definitely, it does. It does. They both tie into each other, and
absolutely,
it's important to work on both. You know, it's important to attend conferences. I think moving in my career, I realized just how important it is to network and to give out my business cards, to actually talk to people in terms of promoting myself. So
absolutely. Maybe next time we can look at a session on how to promote your personal brand.
Exactly.
So now we've looked at identifying your characteristics and sort of the building of your brand and trying to help you come up with something that is comprehensive and effective. So maybe for a future session, that's something that we can touch on.
Exactly. Okay. I think I'm looking at our group chat. We don't have any questions. Unfortunately, I can't view the Facebook chat at this moment, so I'm not able to tell if we have questions there. And looking at time, we've actually gone way beyond what we had initially planned for. Yeah. So yeah, I think we can close here.
Okay, so just before you go, let me just mention that this session, this webinar was sponsored by Amilak. And Amilak is a training college in South Africa that is dedicated to developing young people. Guys, please have a look at the hyperlink. For those of you who are looking to develop yourselves and are looking for opportunities to develop other characteristics about yourself, you can have a look at some courses that are on offer at Amilak and something that may appeal to you. But otherwise, Kobe, thank you so much for having me once more. And for any questions, guys, I will now just take the slides back to the first page. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop me an email. But yeah.
Can I guess who the people were that you showed? You showed a slide at the start.
Oh, yes. How could I forget? Yes, guys. Let's, sorry, we ran over time.
Sorry, so I
Yes,
just thought
no, absolutely. Thank you so much for reminding us, Famida. So did you manage to guess, Famida, who those people are? We will be taking your answers now.
I think I would say Beyonce and Ronaldo.
That is absolutely correct. And those two, and the reason why I use those two in particular is because their personal brands are communicated so effectively that you're so easily able to identify who these individuals are. And that's exactly what your brands should represent. So Famida, I will send you a message offline for your treat. For those of you who want to know, Famida just won herself 20 pounds. Sorry, won herself 20 pounds. And yeah, I'll take your details offline and be able to transfer that to you. But thank you so much.
Famida, can we share?
We can, Koe. You guys have done an amazing job. I think I'll send you a tenner so you can get yourself some wine and toast to how great the presentation has gone. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, thank you to everyone that's joined our first webinar. Wow, I can see quite a number of people logged in online on Zoom. I'm curious to see how many people logged in on Facebook. Thank you so much for joining in. It's been exciting. It's been very knowledgeable. And as I said before, for me, I actually have a lot of thinking to do in regards to my own personal brand. Let the conversation not end here about personal branding. Milimo has shared her contact details. You are also free to send a message to the Lady Moosh page. But yeah, so we are actually going to be running a 10-week series. Next week, we'll be talking about millennial money. We know how to spend the money, but do we know how to make it? So please join me. We'll have another guest speaker. Her name is Mubanga Chileshe. We are so excited to have her. And yeah, I hope we'll see all of you guys again next week. Please have a pleasant evening. Cheers.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
Thank you.